Tonight, a group of workers live to tell the tale of their terrifying confrontation with wildfire.
Fire went around us, literally. I think we never thought I was going to die, but we made it.
As fires dot Canada's map, the latest from all the hotspots. After days of protest against immigration enforcement, the U.S. government sends the National Guard to L.A.
What's the bar for sending Marines to
The bar is what I think it is.
When it comes to bank errors, Go Public hears new calls to overhaul existing oversight.
Totally in favor of the powerful banks and totally against the customers who are on their own.
Plus, tips to protect yourself. My conversation with a cybersecurity expert.
From CBC News, this is The National with Erica Johnson.
Thanks for joining us. The race is on tonight to evacuate a Northern Ontario community as a growing wildfire pushes closer. The Canadian Armed Forces now helping to ferry people out of Sandy Lake First Nation. It's a slow process, but an urgent one. An enormous wildfire is burning just to the west, out of control and on a rampage. A group of construction workers already telling their story of escape from those flames. And it is a remarkable one. They were trying to build a fire break when all of a sudden they were surrounded by flames. Lisa Shing with how they made their escape.
I'm scared. Trapped.
As flames lapped around them, members of a 19-person construction crew in remote northwestern Ontario weren't sure they'd make it out alive. The crew's superintendent says they set out to build a fire break to keep a massive wildfire at bay when it suddenly closed in.
As soon as we start getting our gear out there within the next 20-45 minutes, that's how quick the fire jumped on top of us. Fire went around us. Literally. I never thought I was going to die, but we made it.
They dashed for cover inside a shipping container at a work camp. It eventually caught fire. Helicopters tried to pick them up, but couldn't. They finally escaped in a convoy by road to nearby Sandy Lake First Nation. That fly-in community near the Ontario-Manitoba border is itself under an evacuation order as the wildfire moves closer. The Canadian Armed Forces now flying out residents.
It's terrifying to think that we could lose not only our homes, but a place where we made memories.
Diaz Fiddler waited to get on a plane to Thunder Bay, then onward to southern Ontario.
We had to leave our little dog with the bathtub dripping so she could drink, and we had to leave a bowl of food for her. And it breaks my heart to not know how long we'll be gone for and if she'll be okay.
First to leave, the 1,700 priority residents, young children or those with health issues. After that, about 2,000 others.
We've put on perimeters where nobody can go towards the fire. We got our boats ready if should worst come to shove.
But this is a slow evacuation. The runway is short, so planes can't fly at capacity. And despite the province's efforts, the fire is still not under control. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
With more than 200 wildfires burning in Canada right now, several communities are under threat. Erin Collins shows us how one Saskatchewan village is working to keep a nearby fire out and how the weather is helping for now.
These puddles answers to prayers. This wet weather, a relief.
You must have been so happy to see that rain come yesterday.
Oh, I was dancing in the rain. And it gives the people of the community a little bit of a reprieve for today to take a rest.
The rain briefly stopped work on this fire break, but it could still be needed. The massive Shoe fire, the biggest in Saskatchewan, burning just 10 kilometers away.
We know the fire isn't out. We know it's still smoldering, and it probably, over the next few days, may act up again.
So the preparation continues. People here waiting to be told to leave, bracing for the worst while hoping for the best. A part of the prep work, supporting the firefighters who have flocked here.
We made sure they had a warm meal in the morning, a warm meal at night, and a lunch that they could take with them that has really good food in it, so that they're fueled and ready to fight.
About an hour and a half away in Montreal Lake, it's also a waiting game. This community just south of La Ronge, where a wildfire swept through last week.
We've been packed for a while here since that other fire that broke out. Our clothes are in bags, literally. So that's us. We're ready to go if it happens.
Of course, it's not just Saskatchewan that's on fire. Wildfires chasing residents of northeastern BC out of their homes, too.
We're looking at what are we going to go home to? Is our homes going to still be there?
In neighboring Alberta, fires are also spreading. Crews from across the continent dealing with brutally dry, windy conditions.
It's incredibly challenging, I would say. A lot of wind events happen within a short time frame.
In Manitoba, around 20 communities remain evacuated. Thousands of people still on the run from wildfires there.
Erica, you can see just how much damage this already terrible wildfire season is causing right across the country.
Yeah, for sure, Aaron. A clear sign of how destructive these fires can be is all around you.
It really is. We're just on the side of Highway 120. You can see the damage behind me. That's been caused by the Shoe Fire. Now, the Shoe Fire currently burning is over 400,000 hectares in size. It's a big fire, the largest in the province, and just 9.5 kilometers away from Canada Lake. So you can really understand all the work, all the preparation that those people are doing to get prepared for this fire if it were to arrive.
Okay, thanks for this, Aaron. Aaron Collins, near Candle Lake, Saskatchewan. For a third straight day, people in Los Angeles have taken to the streets to protest immigration raids in the city. But Katie Simpson shows us now the Trump administration has deployed the National Guard and is threatening a full military crackdown.
A show of force by the National Guard troops now on the ground. Witnesses say until this moment, Sunday morning's protests had been peaceful. More rounds of tear gas sent demonstrators running. Officers with batons pushed back the crowds. Crowds ordered to go home as the president warned of a strong response.
We're not going to let our country be torn apart like it was under Biden.
The people united will never be divided.
For 3 straight days, demonstrators have gathered to protest the Trump administration's immigration raids, targeting workplaces around LA, including a Home Depot. Some of the protests became dangerous. Vehicles and buildings were targeted, as were police officers, in these demonstrations that continued into the night. It would take police hours to clear the streets, the images prompting Trump to call in the National Guard, a remarkable move considering the governor and mayor didn't want the help, fearing it would inflame tensions. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth upped the threat, warning if the violence continues, active duty Marines will also be mobilized. They are on high alert, an option the U.S. president says he's considering.
What is the bar for sending Marines to
The bar is what I think it is. I mean, if we see danger to our country and to our citizens, we'll be very, very strong in terms of law and order.
As the protests intensified, Governor Gavin Newsom pleaded with the president to rescind the National Guard order. LA's mayor saying they never should have been sent in the first place.
I was hoping to prevent this situation from happening. I was trying to encourage the administration that if they deployed the National Guard in Los Angeles, it would create a sense of chaos.
Democrats called for peaceful protests while also denouncing Trump's actions.
We have a president who sat back and did nothing as people stormed our Capitol, viciously beat police. So for him to be talking to anybody right now about responsive law enforcement to protect people is hypocritical at best.
Some Democratic lawmakers in California are urging people to stay home, saying Trump wants conflict, accusing the president of wanting to test the limits of his power. If he deploys U.S. Marines on U.S. soil against U.S. citizens, that would be another test of presidential guardrails.
And Katie, the language from Donald Trump on this now is striking.
On social media, he's saying he's ordered the Homeland Security Secretary, the Defense Secretary, and the Attorney General to take all measures necessary to, quote, liberate Los Angeles from the migrant invasion, describing the crowds as insurrectionist mobs.
All right, thanks for this, Katie Simpson in Washington. At the urging of the Trump White House, preparations continue for a military parade in Washington, the first to be held in the country in decades. A train carrying tanks and other military hardware has rolled into Washington. The Army says dozens of armored vehicles and thousands of troops will participate in the parade on June 14th to honor the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army. The date is also Donald Trump's birthday. The day after that, Trump is scheduled to attend the G7 in Canada. He will be met by leaders of countries trying to make sense of his trade war. In response to that, a new government plan to bolster the Canadian economy. And as JP Tasker explains, it's already getting pushback.
With its new bill, the government says it will slash red tape to get major infrastructure projects built quickly.
We need to do things we have not done before, build things we have not built before, and we need to do it at a speed we haven't done in generations.
Energy is the initial focus. Ottawa is considering 2 new corridors to carry natural resources across the country. One could run from Prince Rupert in BC to a port on the Hudson Bay in Manitoba. The other could link Atlantic Canada and Quebec to points further west.
You would see ports, you would see roads, you would see railways, you would see transmission lines.
Alberta is on board, but only if a new oil pipeline is part of the equation.
Our top priority is that bitumen pipeline through to northwest BC, but Port of Churchill could also be an important corridor for us from an energy perspective.
Well, look, the project doesn't make sense.
That's where things could fall apart. The Prime Minister has said he wants a consensus, and BC is dead set against another oil pipeline.
We're not as interested in proposals that would cost really tens of billions of dollars of public subsidy and don't even have a private sector proponent as we speak.
This First Nations business leader from northwestern BC is lining up behind new natural resources development, citing its potential for money and jobs.
There's lots of talk of victimhood for a good reason, but we have to move beyond that. We have to figure out how we're going to create our own self-reliance.
Still, others are worried a streamlined approvals process could trample treaty rights.
We need to put ourselves in the driver's seat to dictate the process, how development will happen in our region.
Prime Minister Mark Carney says he wants to get projects off the ground within 2 years. Some provincial and Indigenous opposition could be sticking points.
Okay, well, switching now to the Prime Minister's international agenda and the G7 meeting next week. What can you tell us about what Carney wants out of those talks, JP?
Yeah, Carney's foreign policy priorities sound a lot like his domestic ones: global cooperation on infrastructure and critical minerals, and a push to break down trade barriers. Those are some of the issues he wants to talk about in Kananaskis. Sources say Carney and U.S. President Donald Trump could also come to an agreement on tariffs on the sidelines of that high-stakes Alberta meeting. Erica?
All right, thanks for this. JP Tasker tonight in Ottawa. Some terrible news from here in British Columbia. An 11-year-old is dead, and police say another child is in critical condition after a speedboat collided with them while they were tubing in waters off of North Vancouver.
Speed and alcohol are a factor, and our investigators are going to work through that.
It happened yesterday evening. The kids were in an inflatable tube and being pulled by another boat when the collision happened. The driver of the speedboat is in custody, but not yet charged. Thousands of world leaders, scientists, and environmental advocates have arrived in France for tomorrow's start of the UN Ocean Conference. The United Nations calls the threats to the world's oceans a global emergency. Benit Brach looks at plans to protect them.
When it comes to protecting the world's vast oceans, the UN says it's a state of emergency, and threats are growing. Finding solutions is the goal of this week's UN Ocean Conference in Nice. At the heart of the conference, a push to ratify the High Seas Treaty. It aims to protect international waters that remain largely ungoverned. That's almost 2/3 of the ocean, according to the UN.
There's been a major gap in ocean governance. There is no tool to put in place marine protected areas. There's no tool to do environmental impact assessments on new activities.
The treaty would allow countries to establish marine protected areas in international waters.
If we don't ratify the treaty, we don't have a seat at the table.
Canada, nestled by 3 oceans and the longest coastline in the world, signed on to that treaty last spring. Oceans North says the country has a long history in ocean governance and expects it to ratify it by fall. Talks will also center on threats from rising temperatures, plastic, pollution, and protecting marine life. Canadian researchers at the conference joining global voices for urgent action.
The impact of climate change on the ocean, that's a big one. And in this case, Canada is not lifting up because we still are one of the leading polluters in terms of CO2.
Threats to the ocean being felt coast to coast to coast. Here in BC, some look at more immediate action, like a beach cleanup.
So these kind of events are really great for bringing attention to these critical issues and to try to empower people to be those change makers, to be those agents of change.
Environmental groups like Oceanwise also watching discussions in France closely as the conference sets the tone for new priorities and calls for action. Beneath Brach, CBC News, Vancouver.
Russia claims it has advanced into the Dnipropetrovsk region of Ukraine as it steps up a summer offensive. I'm not afraid of anything anymore, says this man from a city just 15 kilometers from the front line. Ukraine denies that Russia has entered the region, which would be a first in the war, saying that the situation is tense.
We are doing this because our governments continue to send weapons to kill instead of sending aid to save lives.
That's a message from activists, including prominent climate campaigner Greta Thunberg, aboard an aid flotilla headed for Gaza. Tonight, amid reports the boat has been boarded, Israel says it is escorting it to its shores. Earlier, Israel's defense minister had denounced, in his words, anti-Semitic Greta and her fellow Hamas propagandists, vowing to block the flotilla from reaching Gaza. Colombian police have arrested a 15-year-old suspect after Saturday's attempted assassination of a presidential candidate at a campaign rally. The 39-year-old was shot 3 times, twice in the head, and remains in intensive care. Today, thousands of supporters marched in Bogota. It's unclear what motivated the attack. An Edmonton widow was nearly out thousands of dollars after her husband's pension payment went to a stranger's account.
There's something very wrong about what's going on.
Why the bank blamed the family for the mistake. A Buy Canadian order has left some schools scrambling.
We're looking at which things do we have to cancel.
The critical flaw behind the patriotic plan. And a moonwalking orca's moment in the sun.
Oh my gosh, why is it doing that? Like, I can't believe it's going that way.
We're back in 2.
It's over!
That's back-to-back French Open wins for defending champion Carlos Alcaraz. The Spaniard rallied from a 2-set deficit today to beat top-ranked Jannik Sinner from Italy. It's the first time Sinner has lost a Grand Slam final. Coco Gauff won the women's title. She's the first American to win in Paris since Serena Williams did it 10 years ago.
A Kiwi wins at the Osprey.
A big win today for New Zealand's Ryan Fox at the RBC Canadian Open in Caledon, Ontario. Fox outlasted American Sam Burns in a dramatic 4-hole playoff. Abbotsford, BC's Nick Taylor was the top Canadian, finishing 5 strokes back from the leaders. After the loss of a loved one, an Edmonton family expected a routine pension transfer to go without a hitch. But instead, CIBC put the money into a stranger's account and then blamed the grieving family for it. GoPublic's Rosa Marcatelli explains what happened next.
When longtime lawyer and judge James Koshman died last fall, his family expected a smooth transfer of his $15,000 survivor benefit to his widow.
This was the decision that they made.
But the money never reached her. Instead, CIBC deposited it into a stranger's account. The bank blamed the family, saying they used the wrong transit number. That's the 5-digit code that directs deposits to specific branches. The Koshmans were baffled, since that number came directly from a CIBC employee, they say.
There's something very wrong about what's going on.
This all started because one bank was closing and the accounts were being transferred to another. CIBC later sent an email warning the family not to use the new transit number yet to James's inbox weeks after his death.
Especially when they know he's passed away, yeah, they still send him emails.
CIBC recovered about $3,000, then told the family they'd have to swallow the rest. The Koshmans filed complaints with the bank and then the bank's appeals office. Both times were told there's nothing more CIBC could do.
I just don't think it's right or it's fair.
This consumer advocate says the system is flawed.
Totally in favor of the powerful banks and totally against the customers who are on their own.
The Koshmans then turned to Canada's independent banking watchdog, OBSI. But even if OBSI had sided with them, Conacher says the family might not have seen a dime because OBSI lacks the power to force banks to pay.
It's completely negligent. That no federal government, no federal finance minister has done anything to correct this.
After Go Public contacted CIBC, the bank reversed course and returned the full amount to the family. CIBC says its complaint process meets all required standards, but after reviewing the unique circumstances of the case, it decided to reimburse the family. The Koshmans are relieved to have their money, but worry about others who might not be so lucky. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Calgary.
Our Go Public stories come from you. If you have a tip for the team to investigate, send an email to gopublic@cbc.ca. Bank fraud is becoming more sophisticated, and you could be on the hook if you're targeted.
The bank appears to be protecting itself and trying to protect its own reputation.
How you can increase the odds of keeping your cash safe. Canadian schools are being told to buy Canadian, but some are hitting roadblocks.
School buses can seat 40+ students. Where do you get those from?
The potential cost of buying local. South Korea has a new president tasked with seeking stability for a country in turmoil.
He's going to have to essentially fix the plane while flying in midair.
The National breaks down the stories shaping our world next. U.S. alcohol is once again flowing into Alberta. The province has rescinded its pause on buying American booze and gambling machines, which was designed to push back against Donald Trump's tariffs. The Service Alberta minister says this will set the stage for more constructive trade negotiations with the U.S. The school year is wrapping up for many, but inside the classroom, pressure is building to buy Canadian. And in some cases, it's having an impact on lesson plans. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson explains why buying local may not always be an option.
This science teacher says she got worried when her Quebec school board directed that all school supplies needed to be bought in the province.
I can't walk into a store and buy a liter of certain chemicals or a bucket of frogs for dissection or even some of the parts that we use for mandatory engineering projects.
In an email to CBC News, the Quebec government said public bodies must give preference to the purchase of Quebec goods for acquisitions below a certain amount, and also mentioned restrictions on purchases from online vendors like Amazon. We asked every province and territory and learned many issued similar edicts, prioritizing or encouraging support of local and Canadian suppliers. British Columbia has asked school boards to replace U.S. contracts with Canadian or non-American ones where possible. In Ontario, school boards are restricted from buying American products with an exemption for products where there is no Canadian equivalent, which includes Apple and Google.
It's in line with what our members are already doing. In fact, we had been having reach outs from some of our member boards asking us to advocate for Buy Canadian policies.
Still, school boards have a hard enough time stretching the buck. American vendors sometimes offer a greater variety at a lower cost. Alberta's flexible approach, buy Canadian where you can, gets a thumbs up from the school board superintendent, who says the task is complex.
School buses can seat 40+ students in. Where do you get those from, right? And I know for sure that you would look south of the border potentially for that procurement.
They're going to be off the menu pretty quickly as well.
In the meantime, Quebec teacher Tasha Osman is having to rejig her lesson plans.
And looking at which things do we have to cancel
as the Buy Canadian movement elbows its way into the school hallways. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
Now it's time to dig deeper into the stories shaping our world. South Korea has a new president, but old tensions linger after months of political chaos.
He's going to have to fix the plane while flying it midair.
We'll break down the task to recalibrate a country in crisis. But first,
I just don't think it's right or it's fair.
The growing concerns banks may be passing the buck to the victims of financial fraud.
There's something very wrong about what's going on.
With more Canadians being targeted, I sat down with a cybersecurity specialist to talk about how to better secure your money. Claudia Popa is a cybersecurity and privacy expert and the co-founder of Canada's Cyber Safety Foundation. Claudia, most of the work that you do involves dealing directly with financial institutions, helping them defend against cybersecurity threats. Banking fraud is becoming more and more sophisticated and widespread, and it feels like so many Canadians are being affected. How well would you say that banks are protecting customers against cyber fraud?
I think there's been a vast difference between the internal reality of what banks consider to be bank level security, which we're told is the best available, and the external projection of that reality, which unfortunately, if you ask many people, there's a vast difference between the expectations that they originally had when they signed up with the bank versus their experience when they were unfortunately defrauded or fell victim to identity fraud or identity theft.
Yeah, that aha moment often happens when it's too late, when someone has become a victim. When it comes to banking fraud, what are you seeing in terms of this trend of the banks blaming customers and expecting the victims in these cases to take the fall?
I think it's very disappointing, both from my perspective and from the perspective of victims, when they realize that the bank is not acting on their behalf. The bank appears to be protecting itself and trying to protect its own reputation rather than to remedy a situation that, in fact, could have been prevented had there been sufficient monitoring. I received 2 complaints from individuals saying that their bank has let them down, even though they were the ones notifying the bank. The bank still said, hey, you're on your own, deal with these fraud charges yourself. And of course, that's a shocking revelation to customers who are told when they open these accounts that not only is this as safe as it can be, because after all, they have bank level security, but also as convenient and easy to deal with. So that expectation of safety also creates a false sense of security for many customers. And let's not forget that with every fraud, every security breach to a bank account comes a privacy breach of personal information, because as soon as a malicious person accesses without authorization a customer's account, they have access to a whole lot of personal transactional information, contact information, and a lot of data that helps them profile the victims for future victimization.
So then, Claudia, when customers are being blamed for fraud, what are their rights? What should they be demanding from their financial institutions?
I think the first thing to do is to go back to the financial institution and say, we did read the terms of service. We reviewed them. And in the terms of service, it says we need to notify you within, let's say, a month, in some cases, 60 days of something that's not right. We did this. Or in other cases, when there's something so blatant as there to be charges in a foreign country, well, that's the kind of thing that you would certainly expect your bank to notify you about. And if that doesn't happen, well, it creates confusion and it creates distrust as far as the fraud prevention capabilities of the credit card company, the banking company, and perhaps the financial system as a whole. but people do have a right to be protected by their banking institution.
So as a cybersecurity expert, what are your top safe banking practices? Any tips that consumers should follow to protect themselves?
Oh, absolutely. So there's a number of safety tips that even if the bank does not force users to adopt or customers to use when downloading their apps, it's really important to apply them. And when you're logging yourself in through an app, it's the same thing as logging in through a website. You need to not just present a unique password that is also long, and by unique, I mean not shared with any other site or account, but also you need to make sure that you use multi-factor authentication, a second factor that arrives on a different device. And the third, and perhaps even more important thing, is to have notifications enabled. Make sure that notifications are enabled for any change on your account. Anything that changes, like the new recipients of email payments, like new transactions on your cards. And you should be able to also get notifications for every login to your account. Those are very important when we're looking for convenience from our secure banking institutions.
Right. Convenience is not always better. Thanks for this, Claudio. Some good tips, and we appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Claudio Popa is a cybersecurity and privacy expert and the co-founder of Canada's Cyber Safety Foundation. South Korea's new president has taken the reins, but his country is still very divided.
Those are ballistic briefcases. They're like armor.
Andrew Chang on the source of that political turbulence and the key tasks that lay ahead. South Korea is at a political crossroads after a turbulent 6 months marked by arrests, impeachments, and an attempted assassination. As the country cycles through an assembly line of presidents, a new one is at the helm.
Ultimately, South Korea is going to find itself constrained by both the U.S. and by China.
Andrew Chang, CBC's host of About That, looks at a country spinning out of control and if this new leader can correct course.
I want to show you a picture that tells you everything you need to know about South Korean politics right now and the election they've just had. This is Lee Jae-myung, fresh off his big election night win, his opposition party victorious. He seems happy enough, but he is also aware in this moment that his enemies want him dead. The glass in front of him is bulletproof. In other photos we've seen he's taken to wearing a protective vest under his jacket, and his security detail regularly flanked on either side by men with briefcases. Those are ballistic briefcases. They're like armor, tough enough to stop bullets, and they can expand into a kind of multi-panel shield when needed. If you're a Canadian like me, this seems extreme. But South Korea is a country in political crisis. It's rotated now through 5 presidents in 5 months. Lee, the guy with the crazy security, he was stabbed in the neck last year, an assassination attempt during a public event. His opponents call him a dictator and a monster, and he just became South Korea's new president. Question is, can he save the country from completely unraveling? At the time we're recording this, it's nighttime in South Korea. They've just had their election, and a joint exit poll by the country's broadcasters give Lee Jae-myung of the Democratic Party a comfortable 12-point lead. That's enough to project him as the winner. But looking at the outcome, you can think of the Democratic Party as the more left-leaning mainstream party in South Korea, and you can think of Lee, at least in this chapter of the story, as the man who led the bitter impeachment of his predecessor, Yoon Suk-yeol, of what was the ruling People Power Party. He was the first sitting South Korean president ever to be arrested. And just to give you the backstory here, these two faced off against each other before in the past, with Yoon coming out ahead, barely. But then, less than 2 years into his presidency, he declared martial law under what were later determined to be very dubious pretenses, basically a power grab, which led to his arrest, impeachment, and removal from office. So Lee wins in the end. But Yoon's legacy, his ouster, his parade of replacements, the chaotic lack of consensus around the direction of anything in this country, this has created a colossal fracture.
South Korea has been without a leader for 6 months.
The last 6 months have been unprecedented and chaotic, even in the tumultuous South Korean sort of political history.
For many, many months now, South Koreans have been angry at their leaders, and not just the ones who get arrested and impeached. According to the BBC, it became commonplace to chant for various political leaders to be executed. And in March, even the frontrunner and eventual winner of this week's presidential election, police reportedly uncovered an assassination plot against him. As one writer put it, and I'm just going to read this whole thing because there's a lot here, political polarization has reached extreme levels. Social media feeds are filled with conspiracy theories, disinformation, and personalized attacks. Accusations of being pro-Chinese, pro-North Korean, or traitorous are thrown around as routine political rhetoric. Trust in institutions, from the presidency to the judiciary, has sharply declined. So this is the backdrop for what has just unfolded in South Korea. The election of, and this really depends on where you politically sit, either a bold reformer, a working class hero, or a criminal, no better than all the others. At this point, I should at least mention the second place candidate in this election, Kim Moon-soo of the People Power Party. Yes, the same People Power Party, formerly under the leadership of disgraced President Yoon Suk-yeol. Kim's challenge was always going to be whether he could adequately distance himself and his party from the catastrophic mess of its former leader.
He was a defender of Yoon's right as the chief executive to declare martial law in the event of some sort of national emergency.
But he also had leverage because his opponent, the frontrunner, the eventual winner of the election, both he and his wife have been embroiled in criminal accusations and charges. Let's start with his wife. Fined for misusing a government credit card while her husband was a provincial governor. It became fodder for jokes on Saturday Night Live Korea, with the wife of Lee's main opponent slamming Lee's wife for mishandling taxpayer money. And this notion of spouse risk is real enough in South Korean politics that the People Power Party even proposed a wives debate with ethics as a major topic of discussion.
And it's really no holds barred, and you're going to dig up whatever dirt you can on the other candidate. So the opposition, whether you're conservative or progressive, are really trying to hunt for something they can use to bring you down politically. And looking at wives and also children have been a liability as well, too.
But Lee himself has been accused of a more serious crime, electoral fraud, linked to allegedly false statements made during the last presidential election in 2022. I won't get into that, but that case and ongoing corruption investigations have swirled around Lee throughout the entire run-up to his election night victory, and his opponents say this man cannot be trusted. Lee dismisses all of this, just partisan mudslinging, and what has undoubtedly helped him is that a series of retrials and appeals had all been pushed off until after the election. But all of this goes to show you how trust is in short supply.
Public trust is extremely low. And that's not just of government, it's public trust in the media, public trust even in the courts and in the police. Because I think there's a general sense that Korean society is both unequal and, as a result of that, potentially unfair.
But even all of this only scratches the surface of how incredibly difficult the road ahead will be for the new president. In a very real way, South Korea's domestic political chaos just could not have come at a worse time. Its sworn enemy, nuclear-armed North Korea. They spent months last year exchanging balloons filled with trash and propaganda. Kim Jong-un has found a powerful ally in Vladimir Putin, sending troops to the front line of Russia's war with Ukraine. There's also the challenge of managing a frosty relationship with China, maybe as precarious as managing an unpredictable relationship with the US. South Korea's economy has stalled.
We have seen the Bank of Korea cut rates last week and downgrade the growth forecast for this year.
And as an export-heavy country, almost half of its economy is exports. South Korea is among the most vulnerable to Donald Trump's tariffs.
Ultimately, South Korea is going to find itself constrained by both the US and by China amid their emergence of a new Cold War. And as a result of that, South Korea is going to find itself in a very difficult space, both geopolitically as well as in terms of its trade and investment relationships externally.
South Korea's economy is shrinking. Its birth rate is among the lowest in the world. Its suicide rate among the highest. And on a very different note, this most recent election has, in a way, disenfranchised about half of the electorate. By voting day, for the first time in years, not a single presidential candidate was female. This in a country with one of the highest wage gaps between men and women, where less than a fifth of all lawmakers are women, where calling someone a feminist is often an insult. And in case all of that wasn't enough to juggle, let's not forget, there is no real transition period for the new president.
It's because the previous president was impeached that they don't get the benefit of that transition.
This is a very unique election because Lee takes office within 12 hours of being declared the victor, and these problems are not going to wait any longer. So it's going to be difficult. He's going to have to essentially fix the plane while flying it midair.
But he has one thing going for him. For the first time in a long time, his party now has control of both the legislature and the presidency. That's control. So, yes, quite possibly, the hardest job Lee Jae-myung has ever had starts now. But nobody knows where this story is going to go next.
South Korea's new president will step onto the global diplomatic stage in Canada at the G7 summit in Alberta next week. Local reports suggest the Koreans could have a sideline meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump. BC's government is spending millions to save old rental buildings. The goal, they say, to protect tenants and rental stocks in the midst of a housing shortage. But not everyone sees it as a fix. Here's a look at the story Lindsay Duncombe is working on.
Many renters across Canada live in fear.
It was scary because we didn't know what's going to happen with the building. Maybe we'll lose the apartment.
As corporations buy up older buildings,
I'm so sorry.
anxiety grows for families living in them.
You're worried about being on the street? Yeah.
British Columbia is spending public money to help save buildings, keep rents low.
This is a homelessness prevention tool as much as anything else.
Critics say it's a waste, getting in the way of building new homes the country so desperately needs.
It's a terrible idea. It's better to take the money and throw it in the ocean.
You can watch Lindsay's story right here on The National in the coming days. Next, an orca caught swimming backwards off the coast of West Vancouver.
You can hear my mom and I kind of freaking out. Oh my gosh, why is it doing that? Like, I can't believe it's going that way.
The moonwalking marine mammal in our moment. You're looking at an orca swimming backwards just off the West Vancouver shoreline. The video was captured by a couple of new BC residents during a family visit. And tonight, the rare sighting makes our moment.
Seeing it do the backwards moonwalking movement, like, oh my gosh, why is it doing that? Like, I can't believe it's going that way. My partner and I were from Ontario originally, both outdoors enthusiasts. What we've done since we've moved to BC is trying to understand a little bit more about the whales. And this specific moment, my parents were actually visiting. We went to like a nearby beach. There was two pods, one of them was breaching. And that's when I captured the video.
He's going backwards. Why is he going backwards?
You can hear my mom and I kind of freaking out. We heard that this was like a celebration for a really good hunt. So a little bit more gruesome, but it looked fun when we were there anyways. It was just great to have my parents see that. Like, they've been seeing all of the kind of adventures we've been doing over the past 4 months. They were freaking out, absolutely. Ready to buy a ticket again next month.
Now, according to a marine mammal zoologist, it could indicate that they have been hunting and they're about to share their massive prey. So spectacular to watch, but also a reminder that they are ferocious predators in the ocean, and apparently also big fans of Michael Jackson's signature move. Thank you for being with us. You can watch anywhere, anytime on the free CBC News app and subscribe to the National's YouTube channel. I'm Erica Johnson in Vancouver. Take care.